You can live a life full of love and light if you just let the Spirit guide you. It's the remedy where you'll find peace, but you must let the Spirit guide you.
Who made y'all priests?
What's up, world? This is Awo Fafore.
What's going on, good people? This is our Osheun. Welcome back to the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, where we talk about our spiritual journeys, our everyday life experiences, and the issues of the time from the perspective of two people who just happen to be priests. Fafore, what's going on, man?
Man, nothing much, man. What's going on with you?
Man, so I got a question for you.
All right.
I saw a story of a trans woman.
Man, you don't want us to get no sponsorship money, man.
Hey man, this the issues of the time, man. We got to talk about the issues of the time, man. This was something that just happened. This just occurred, man. This is the time in which it occurred, so we must talk about those things.
I'll show you.
So a trans woman, which for those of you that don't know, because myself and Fafore, we were unfamiliar with the terms, means that this is a biological man who identifies as a woman, was physically assaulted. I mean, pretty viciously too, after going into a women's restroom behind what was said to be young girls. How do you feel about that?
Who assaulted? Him or her? I don't really know what
The story led me to believe that it was fathers of the little girls that were inside of the restroom.
So this is how I look at it, right? The times that we live in, you do have like people who are predators, right? We got people who are always going after little kids. So I can understand it. Like I can understand father saying this is somebody who's trying to manipulate the situation, use the situation, and they're trying to go after our kids. So I understand it. I feel like as long as we have those people out there who are preying on kids, man, if you what's that, transgender man or woman? What was it?
It's a trans woman, a biological man.
Okay, if you a trans woman, because of the times we live in, and like you for real, legitimately, like that's really what you own. Man, you're gonna have to have some hands. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to this bathroom situation, like who would have thought, man, having to go, you know what I'm saying, take a dump was gonna be one of the situations where you're gonna have to, square up. But that's just the times we live in, man. Man, times is just different. Uh, and you know, I feel bad if the person was legitimately living in their truth and had no ill intentions. But then again, that's the contract they signed, right?
Man, see, this is a difficult one for me, because I don't feel bad. I really don't. I don't feel bad at all. The way I look at it, regardless of how a person identifies, what I see is a man going into the women's restroom behind little girls. I wouldn't have let him went in there behind mine. You're gonna have to go into the men's restroom. If you finna go in there and pull out a penis, you gotta go into the men's restroom, or you gotta wait until my daughter or any other little girl that I saw go in there. You're gonna have to wait for them to come out.
Or they're gonna have to catch a fade.
It's gonna be problems. It's gonna be problems, man. And I understand, if they want to make things equitable or inclusive, then we need a whole nother bathroom. We need a whole nother bathroom. Like this is the come as you are bathroom. This is the however you
Sure.
identify. this is the this is the however you identify bathroom. But we gonna leave the women's restroom alone. We're gonna only let women or what they call it cisgendered women go into those restrooms.
So
Yeah.
this is my real question though. Do all transgenders is is that part of the thing where you keep your other body parts or
So
like
this is something that I was trying to have a conversation with you about when we were talking about the difference between sex and gender. Until recently, we call them transsexuals. And when we said transsexual, I was under the impression that this was a person that had underwent surgery to change into the secondary sexual characteristic that they identified as. Now we say transgender, and this is a person that identifies as the opposite sex, usually only by feeling, and they maintain their secondary sexual characteristics. They maintain those organs. You're not going to go behind my daughter or anybody else's daughter, young girls, as a man into the women's restroom, not while I'm there. You don't have to wait till they come out.
so this me being the earth sign. If I still got male body parts, if I still got a penis, I'm gonna go to the urinal.
But not
So
if you
I'm a
identify as a woman.
no. I still got a penis though. I'm still gonna
You can sit
like
down.
you can, but peep this though. Like real talk, as a man sitting down to go pee, like that ain't what we do. Like you got to do some extra stuff to empty the tank. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. It's been some times where like well that might be TMI, but anyway, you just need to stand up to really make sure you all the way good. Area is
Right.
empty.
Right.
So it's just practical to do that. So I mean, I guess I can't put myself in the mindset of somebody who's transgender to say that if I was transgender, I would do that because I don't know. I might have a different mindset. But yeah, if I'm a transgender woman, man, I'm gonna ride the fence on wherever I have the advantages. To be
Right.
perfectly honest, like I'm the hoop scholarship, I'm going with the women, you know what I'm saying? So I can, you know what I'm saying, try to dominate physically. I'm going to the man's bathroom, you know what I'm saying? Because it just make more sense. And why you gonna sit out on the toilet and you ain't got to? Just to go
Right.
pee? You know what I'm saying? Like that's trifling. So I mean, women. I know women who they've been women their whole life, and they know how to position themselves where they ain't got to sit on the toilet and all that.
Right.
Man, I ain't trying to do all of that.
Yeah,
It's
that's a lot.
just yeah. So I would do it that way, man. But I wonder though. Here's another thing too. Are they covered under the like hate? They covered under hate crimes and stuff like that. So you can get some time for doing that.
So this is how I think now. This is how I think, even as a convicted felon myself. There are some things that I'm willing to go to jail behind. That I already got it on my mind that I'm willing and ready to go to jail behind this, and that, this, and that. I already got it in my mind so that if something happened and I need to put myself in a position where I might go to jail, I ain't even thinking about it. I'm ready to go about whatever this situation is. So behind that, especially if it's my daughter, I'm
Right.
yeah, I'm ready to go to jail. I'm ready to go to jail behind that. Or suffer whatever consequences come behind that. I'm ready to suffer those consequences.
Man, I ain't trying to be in jail for the length of a Drake song. I ain't never been to jail for. I'm Gucci.
I feel you. I feel
It's
you.
gonna be some.
I don't want to go to
Woo.
jail. I hope. that it seems like stuff like that never happens around where I'm at. You know, like I see it on the news a lot, I see it in the media a lot, but
Right.
I don't see a lot of trans people around me. And I'm all over up, at least north of Houston. I'm all over up here, and I don't run into
Mm-hmm.
many trans people. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'll ever have those type of problems. But let me ask you another question though.
Well, hold on.
This
Before
is
you go there, though, we had a trans man at my last job.
trans man meaning biological woman that identifies as a
Oh, I
man.
mean, I'm tripping. Trans woman. Yeah,
A
it was a
biological
biological
man.
man. Yeah, and he would go to the women's bathroom. He had like a long ponytail, like he had long hair. I think he had breasts. Now
But he
he
would go to
was,
the women's restroom.
yeah, he would go to the women's restroom, and like women wouldn't go if they knew he was in there. Whatever, the women was like, we ain't going for it. They wouldn't go in the bathroom,
Yeah,
and
that's
for a
uncomfortable
minute,
to
women
me.
was really like mad about it.
Mm-hmm. They should be. I think they should be. If you listen to the women swimmers talk about, I forgot dude's name that swam with the women and broke all of those records, and
Right,
how they talked about him uh, changing in the locker room and how uncomfortable they were around him. Man, I know that's an uncomfortable feeling for a woman. I know it is. And I think now in that case at your job where everybody is adults,
right,
everybody, you know, are of consensual age. And yeah, man, I just think people should know better than that, man.
man.
I think we're starting to cross lines that I knew we were going to cross once we started getting, you know, you got people now that you have men that identify not only as women, but they identify as 8-year-old girls. Is that those type of things, man? Like I can't, I'm just not going to accept that around me, well, at least not around my little girl.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna start identifying as tax exempt.
I told you I was gonna start identifying as not guilty. Not guilty.
Right. Right.
I need all my rights back. I need everything back. I need everything expunged.
Right. It need to be that need to be on the books. I'm about to really see if I can get a lawyer who can, press that issue for me. Like
So
tax exempt.
so let me ask you another question then, because this is something else that has been an issue surrounding the LGBTQIA plus community. There are trans women who claim that if a man dates them, that he's not gay. How do you see that?
That's 100% unequivocally not true.
Exactly.
If you
Right.
if you think about being with the same sex and you just don't do it, you gay. Like
Nah,
if you
man.
fantasize about, yeah, if you fantasize about it, like if a dude walk, like if you was chilling at the mall, you O'Sheaun Fayenne, and a man walked by, you was like, ooh, what I do to him? You gay, even if you never do it. Yeah, it is what it is. And I ain't saying nothing wrong with that. Just own it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is that you own, just own it. Yeah,
Right. I
yeah.
just think we're taking it too far with people identifying the way that they want to identify and then forcing other people to identify them as that. Ifa says we gonna call the thing. That's what Awo Fabalasi. Shout out to Awo Fabalasi when he opening up his map. Today we gonna call the thing. I will not see red and call it black. I will not see black and call it red.
But is a thing because somebody else identified it as such, or is because it identified itself as such?
The thing is the thing because it's differentiated from something else. That's what make the thing the thing. We
Hey, what
call a
I
man a man because a man is differentiated from a woman.
but what I just said was kind of profound on the cool.
They're gonna be talking about that in psychology class. I mean, in philosophy classes at Harvard and Yale soon, man.
Right, right. You know what we should do this season? We should have somebody from the LGBT community come in and we have a discussion about it.
We definitely need to do that. And you definitely need to say all of the letters because you are excluding people when you just say LGBT. Yeah.
I'm black. We abbreviate everything. You know.
So that's your excuse.
Yeah, like that's for real. Like we abbreviate everything to make it short.
Right.
Like it's went past T. It's LGBT.
QIA plus.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And then
saying?
remember, we were told that the one term that you could use to encompass all of that is queer.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say that.
See, I always thought that was a bad word. I always thought that was a derogatory term.
Yeah, me too. But we're gonna have somebody on this season who gonna educate us on what's going on. So, you know what I'm saying? So we can be fair and balanced and be informed about what's going on in the world because at the end of the day, whether people like it or not or whatever they think about it, it is it's a human experience at this point. You know what I'm saying? And it's here to stay. So,
Hmm.
you know, might as well get informed.
Right.
So, family, this season on the Who Made Y'all Preach podcast, we are introducing a new segment. So, O'Shea and myself sat down and had a conversation. We said, you know what? We should do some teaching, you know, introduce the people to our world of Ifa,
Hmm.
but in a cool way that would appeal to people and keep people's interest. So we decided to have a segment where we tell stories so you can understand some of the myths and the lessons that come from the wisdom of nature or Ifa.
Hmm.
So we are going to introduce to you Ifa Kemi and Ori story.
Coming in on a Wednesday change to put something on your brain. What's up, y'all? It's Ifa Kimmy with Ayuloda Garden Botanica, and I am here with Who Made Y'all Preach. And we have an Ori story for you today. So are y'all ready? Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready for this Ori story? Are y'all ready for this Ori story? Are y'all ready for this Ori story? Get ready for this Ori story. So, today's Ori story is Oshun's elbow. So, let's get right into it. Oshun is the owner of all things making life worth living. Love, abundance, beauty, and eroticism. So limitless are her blessings that she shares generously with those who honor her. So vast is her wealth that she gives freely to all of her children. However, things were not always like this. There was a time where Oshun wandered the earth in poverty and despair. Her sorrows were so deep that instead of creating wealth with her touch, she destroyed it. And instead of molding beautiful things with her hands, all that she caressed withered and died. Helpless and hopeless, Oshun went to the diviners to learn what she had to do to leave the misfortunes in her life behind. A diviner told her, "You must make sacrifice, but it will be no simple thing. Not only will it take all of your remaining wealth, but it will also require all of your spiritual faith. I will do anything to increase my status in life," Oshun said. "In spite of what I do not have, all I have is my faith. So, what is required of me? The diviner replied, take every bit of money you have. Go to the market, buy all the palm oil and honey you can find, and if you have even a single penny left in your pocket, you do not have any faith. And this elbow requires faith. He waited for Oshun to speak. And after I do that, what do I do? Oshun replied to him. Before the sunset, pour all of your oil and honey into the river, and Olodumare will bring all that you desire and more. Oshun despaired, for she had so little left, and she was loathing parting ways with this. But she had faith in Olodumare and the diviner skills and words. So she took all of her money to the market, bought up all the red palm oil and all the honey she can find. And knowing who she was, and knowing that she had fallen on hard times, the merchants gave her extra just because she was Oshun. I may be penniless, but my look is already improving, she thought to herself. Sunset came, and Oshun sat at the river's edge, surrounded by her jars of palm oil and honey. She lifted the first jar of honey and took just a taste. She said, my life has come to this. My last taste of sweetness, and then I have no more. I have nothing. I am lost, she said as she cried. She poured the honey into the river. She cried as she poured the red palm oil into the river. And as the sweet, greasy swirls settled into the river sand, she cried some more. And her tears hung on the grass like morning dew. Then she cried herself to sleep on the riverbank because she had nowhere else to go. While she slept, Eshu came walking by. And Eshu saw her laying by the riverbank. He said, oh, poor little girl. And he walked to the edge of the river and he put his finger in the river, swirling his finger through the sand. He picked his finger back up and licked it. He tasted the palm oil and the honey, and he looked at Oshun. Good little girl, he smiled. And he took the taste of the offering to Olodumare. Look what your daughter has done. She made offerings with everything she had, and now she sleeps at the riverbank, crying herself to sleep. She has faith in you, Olodumare. Olodumare closed his eyes, and with his inner vision looked down on earth. He saw what Eshu was saying was true. Oshun had nothing left but her faith, and now she slept with despair. She was the last of your creations, Olodumare, and the health of the world depends on her happiness. It cannot go on if she continues to be so sad. I know, Eshu. You think you have to tell me about what I created? She will be rewarded for her faith, Olodumare said back. But how will she be rewarded? Eshu said. You will see, Olodumare replied. Sunrise came, and with the new day, Oshun awoke. She turned on her back and stretched delicately. She ran her fingers through the soft grass on which she slept and felt something hard and cold against her hands. She sat up quickly and stiffly. Oshun blinked and she did not believe her eyes. Sometime during the night, her tears turned into tiny jewels, brilliant diamonds that sparkled in the early morning light. She cupped her hands, palm holding a handful close to her face. Mojuba Olodumare, she gasped. I am blessed. She put the handful of jewels in her pocket and she slowly realized as she was walking towards the riverbank that the river was stone with brilliant jewels. This is unbelievable. These were my tears. Wanting to wash the sleep from her eyes, Oshun just got up and walked straight to the riverbank and stopped when she saw the bottom of the river was no longer water. It was all brass and gold. And while she contemplated on this mystery, Eshu came walking right by. You look surprised, Oshun, he said, smiling. Do you not see the river? Do you not see the river bank? Oshun said. Eshu looked. He rubs his chin as if he was lost in thought. Looks like jewels, brass, and gold to me, Oshun. I made offerings last night into the river. I poured red palm oil and honey. And you cried, Eshu put it. How did you know? Oshun said as she put her hands on her hips. I know because I took your offerings to heaven. Eshu said proudly, puffing up his chest. Olodumare turned the red palm oil into brass, the honey into gold, and your tears into jewels. And because the river is yours, everything here is yours as well. And that is how Oshun became the richest Orisha on earth. She made offerings with everything that she had, and Olodumare himself rewarded her for her faith. And that is the end of today's Ori story. Asheo.
Yo, that was a good story.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. We need to hear more of those stories, and we will do that this season.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, hey, you ready to just jump in and bring in our guest for today?
Man, let's do this, man. Let's get it started.
All right. So today we got not one, but we got two guests,
Mm.
and these guests grew up in Ifa. We talked, I think it was last season, maybe the season before that, about how most of the people that we knew were actually first generation Ifa practitioners, but we actually have some people who grew up in Ifa, and they're going to talk to us about their experiences.
Lafia.
Alafia,
Lafayette, how you doing?
Oh, it's good to see y'all.
good to see you too.
Sorry, we
I know.
thought we were ready, and then y'all had us turn and have to readjust. But that's so much better because we actually fit into the camera now.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
we glad y'all got it together.
Yes.
yeah.
Always.
Right. So how y'all doing? How y'all feeling?
Good. Good. We're excited. Thank you guys for having us and making us a part of y'all's podcast. Yeah, I remember talking to you, Fafore, about coming on when we were at the compound a couple weeks ago. So I'm happy that we really making it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like who better to have, especially to talk about this topic that we got today.
I'm excited. I'm trying to get used to myself in this camera because it's like when we look at ourselves, we're on opposite sides.
We are.
Right. Yeah. It takes some getting used to because every time I look at myself, I feel like I'm looking away from the camera.
Yeah.
So I just don't even focus on me. I focus on y'all and I focus on 540. I don't even watch me. Yeah. So we want y'all to introduce yourself to the people. Of course, one at a time. Introduce yourself. Tell us about your current spiritual practice.
Okay. You want to go first? All righty. Well, my name is Akila. I Ifa Fore as well.
Hey.
And I practice Ifa. I like to think of it as just kind of like the study of nature, using nature to really guide me throughout my life journey, and just really focusing on moving in good character and also continuing to learn what good character looks like as I move along in life. Yeah, for sure.
I say.
Tahira, and my Ifa name is Ifa Salaye. And pretty much what she said, as well as like always giving honor to our ancestors. That is a huge part of what we practice in Ifa is ancestral reverence. And, just remembering to honor them and knowing that they always walk with us and support us and guide us in our journey. And, calling on them, calling on them to support us in, whatever it is that we need in our journey. And, just as we move in alignment with our destiny. So yeah, that's in a nutshell.
Ashe.
So we usually start by asking people about their spiritual journeys. We know a lot about your spiritual journey. You don't have much in background as far as things like Christianity and all of that type of stuff. So, but anyway, tell us about your spiritual journey and how you came to Ifa.
Oh yeah, that's quite the story there. I mean, of course, for us, like to talk about our spiritual journey, it really goes back with our parents. Yeah. And when they started like kind of navigating their spiritual journey, I would say that like growing up, we always saw our parents as like spiritually curious. From a very young age, like we grew up and there was one point where my parents, they had us at the mosque, Yeah. We were going, then we went to the mosque. Yeah. Then we went back to literally, like they were going through their own self-discovery. And then when we would go home to Dallas to my dad's home, my great grandmother, she was really like a beacon in like the church. Like she came with her Sunday best. She sat front row. She was not playing around. Yes. And it was Church of God of Christ. So
that was Koji.
Yeah. So my dad, he can like tell you anything about the Bible. He knows the verses like it's the back of his hand. So yes. He used to listen. We used to like, do we have to wear a dress? Yes. With the stockings. Like,
absolutely.
Yes, like was not playing around. So I think my parents initially got initiated around, I want to say maybe 2008. And I want to say they started out, so it started with numerology. And our parents also going to see Baba Femi and Shango Dare speak. And so, we saw them doing their things here and there, but the first time that they had us sit on a mat is when we was like, what's going on? Well, I think, yeah, and I think even we saw them sitting on the mat with Shango Dare, and it was like, oh. Yes. But when we like, I remember the first time I sat on the mat and I just see Shango over here, like, and just speaking another language. I'm 12. So you already know, I'm looking at my sister trying not to laugh. And I'm like 14 and we're just like, Okay, what's going on?
Because, you know, like, of course, like we said, we had been in the church, we had been in the mosque, but still, you know, there was similar with the religion, you know, there were still similar attributes, you know, as far as going to the place of worship, the word, all of those things. Whereas, like, we had never seen anything about divination, you know what I mean?
Right.
It was just a totally new experience for
Right.
us.
So we didn't fully comprehend what was going on, but we were just there.
Yeah, like
figuring it
we
out.
trusted our parents, of course. You know, like at that
Of
age,
course.
sit on this mat, this is what you're gonna do. Like, you know,
Basically.
Right.
that's kind of how that experience was. But we both were looking at each other like, what did they do it like?
I don't know about this.
But we, you know, we're going with the flow.
Wow.
Yeah. So it took us a little bit of time. Even before we first got our hand, we would, you know, they would just kind of, we would tag along with them, like to go hear Baba Femi speak. You know, Baba Shango, he was always around. So, you know, we were kind of like fly on the wall. It's almost like when you're a kid and like your parents, even when we were going to church and going to the mosque, we were just like, okay, like, you know. But one thing I will say that when I was younger, sometimes it did leave me with a little bit of like, I don't want to, maybe confusion or just like, okay, what is the right path?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
but as an adult, I'm so grateful that I kind of got to see that journey, because it taught me that there's like no one right way of like your connection to source. You know what I mean? It taught
Right.
that like your spirituality is very personal. Like your relationship with God is very personal. Like even what we were talking about earlier, Gran, she was Church of God in Christ, but she's one of our ancestors that shows up for us.
Yeah.
Like
she was
heavy.
very close with like God. She had a very good connection with Source.
Yes. So it's like even in her afterlife, like we received messages from her and confirmations, and it's like she wasn't even she know nothing about Ifa. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah.
And I will say too, since we were kind of throughout our journey of hopping to Christianity and then hopping out of it, I always kind of had the question of like God and the judgment I felt from like the church of God. Like if you do this, you're gonna get punished. If you do that, you're gonna get. Whereas Ifa, I didn't really see it as like that type of like punishment. I don't know. It seemed to more come natural as opposed to just thinking like, if you do this wrong thing, like God's looking down at you and something's gonna happen. So
going to hell.
Right. So let's touch on that a little bit though, talking about initially being, you know, in the church. Kojic, my best friend growing up, dad is a pastor, Kojic Pentecostal church.
Wow.
Yeah, no pants, all of that, right? From because as kids, right, you're not really thinking about, at least most of us, I would think, as children, the teaching more so than the how did you feel being in that environment, right? So talk to us a little bit about how you felt, you know, in the church, for instance. Then, you know, coming to E5, how did it feel as a kid?
I kind of felt like an outsider in the church. I don't really know how to explain it deeper than that, but I didn't really feel that deep connection with God. Whereas when I began to practice Ifa, I was able to develop like a deeper connection within myself and see myself, which allowed me to also have a deeper connection with Source, you know?
Right.
So it was just a different feeling. That kind of describes my experience. What about you, T?
I would say for me, like growing up, I always felt connected to God. Like I always felt like if I don't know anything else, I can pray. You know what I mean? I can pray to God. Like, you know, that's how I always felt. Because if I was in the church, in the mosque, like that's something that I always felt. But I mean, yeah, there was definitely times where I felt kind of like an outsider in the church. Also because we had bounced around to a few different churches, by the way.
did.
Like,
different styles.
It was different styles.
Right.
So I remember it was like I think we were members of a Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
Our great grandmother, when we would go to Dallas, it was Kojic. And then I remember one time we went to like this hippie style
It was
church.
like free spirit.
Yeah.
So they had the acoustic guitar going.
Yeah. So, but like I always knew I could go to God. But for me, it was that kind of feeling of like, okay, some of this is like, it's like when you ask deeper questions, well, why is it this way? Or why can't I question this? Well, don't question God. You just have to have faith. This is how it is. And that's the part that kind of would confuse me. And then I would say, like, initially transitioning into Ifa, for me, there was even some resistance with that. Because again, it's like at this age, growing up, seeing my parents, I'm observing and I'm like, maybe a preteen, young teenager. And then by the time we got our hand, it wasn't really like, even my parents, like, I think it probably came down like, okay, it's time for them to get their hand as well. But it wasn't really like presented as an option, I would say.
Right.
But we didn't
which
feel
is
forced.
fine. It also wasn't forced, but it was just kind of like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. And but again, like, we trust our parents. It was never like a fear or anything like that. But again, when we went into it, for me, I would say just being at that age of adolescence, it was a little bit of resistance because you're already going through so much as a teenager, and you kind of feel like you're just trying to navigate so much already,
Right.
and then you're questioning life, you're questioning things. And with Ifa, it's like the way this works is like it brings so much self-awareness, because like you're doing these divinations, we were also getting like numerology and astrology readings, all of these things, which was helpful. But I think at the time, sometimes it's like, okay, you're presented with this information, but like as a teenager, I still want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right. Hell, as an adult, even I still want to do what I want to do.
Right. That was one of the things that I talked to your mom about. Iya Ogunbumi, shout out to Iya Ogunbumi. And I think she just approached me one day and was just telling me, because she know that I have a teenage son that has received his hand and things like that. And she was basically giving me some game, like, don't force it. Don't force it on him. You're just going to have to bring him around, let him see, and find his way into Ifa, or find himself inside of Ifa on his own. So I haven't been forcing it on him, and just let him ask his own questions and give him the answers that I can give him. And, hopefully at some point, I think, like you say, as a teenager, you just want to do what you want to do. You got all of these different things going on. You're questioning your own identity and place in, whatever, in school, at home, and all of these different things. So I don't force it on.
Mind you, none of our peers were like, they didn't know anything about Ifa. And now I would say people are it's a lot more acceptable to be spiritually curious, or, but, growing up, we're in the South, people, my friends and their mother might just automatically ask, well, what church do you go to, or what church? And I'm like, well, I don't. Or like, it's like, it would be judgment. So it's like, dealing when you're already a teenager, trying to be sure of yourself, and then you can't talk about these things with your peers, it's a bit of, like, it took a little time to figure out. But I think that advice is great advice, because eventually, and it really kind of took me graduating from high school, going to college, being on my own, to have some experiences like, really leaning back in, like, let me use my spiritual tools. But I also learned a lot, and still learn so much through watching my mother and, watching my father, but especially like as a woman, like watching my mother and how she moves. So even with your child, it's like, it may be resistance, but they're paying attention. You know what I mean? And it later on. But paying attention to you and move, how you pray, how you use your spiritual tools, all of that. So
So we know by practice, and I'm not even saying by doctrine, but by practice, uh, religion usually the way it's practiced brings a lot of restrictions and things of that nature, right? So as your parents transition to E5, right, and you guys are teens or preteens, how did that change the way they parented you guys? Like, did you see a difference between uh like the Christian version of your parents or the Muslim version of your parents and the E5 version of your parents?
That's funny.
What would you say?
I don't know that I saw a difference in a sense of them being harder on us.
Yeah.
Right.
From Christianity to Ifa. I think really when they began practicing, they were really focused on just growing spiritually, and just being a resource for us to support us in growing spiritually.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I will say though, it is different because we're getting these readings each year, and now it's kind of like your parents are more so in your business.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
comes up and it's like, well, like
yeah, that happened to me quite a few times. Like,
like, what's this?
It's kind of in my chart right now.
Yeah. So I think that's more so like getting comfortable with just telling them, maybe having to get more comfortable with being open with them and just about maybe what we're experiencing or what we're going through, so we could really utilize like our readings and get fully understand what's coming up from the readings, because
Right.
stuff sometimes they may not fully understand or be able to support us in certain ways. So
Right. I couldn't imagine being 16, right? And be like, yo, mom, can I go to this party? She like, yeah, go ahead, cool. And then the day before her busting the room, like, oh, so you trying to lose your virginity tonight? Like, what?
Whoa. Like, literally, like, okay, listen. Some of this stuff I need to just navigate for myself. That's how I was feeling like.
Like, I don't want the answer. Like, I don't want, just let me move how I want to move.
Am I going to get in trouble? Like,
Right. So talk to us about that, though. Talk to us about that, okay, maybe now you're at a space, your parents have been in it for a couple years now. You got some readings, you understand, you like, okay, I know this is real.
yeah.
But I kind of want to have my own experience, right? I'm at an age where I just want to try it. Let me do it. Like, talk to us about that. And did you have that conversation with your parents? Like, hey, y'all gonna have to cut out all these readings. Like, let me live.
Well, I can definitely talk about that because I still bump my head at times, but at that age, I definitely, it's like, again, you're presented with a lot. And it's such a blessing, like looking back, I'm so grateful. But at the time, it was just like, yeah, I don't want to hear all of this. Like, you telling me, no. It's like, for example, you might like the party thing. You might want to go to a party. And, at that age, my social life was like my priority,
Right.
So that's all, that was my priority. And so it's like, oh yeah, now something comes up, your mother's just like, oh, I have a feeling, or oh, I read and the energy about this is not the best. You shouldn't go to this party. But for me, it's like, I want to go turn up with my friends. Like,
Right.
I don't have the same wisdom or the same level of understanding. And then it's like frustration because then you see it play out and maybe something dangerous happened at that party, or maybe like, your friends didn't even end up at the party, like whatever the case may be. You see that it's real. Like, it's not so much of questioning, is this real? Because you see it, like, no, want to resist it or not. That's where it kind of comes into play, as opposed to religion. Like, you can question that all day, but once you start getting these readings and certain things, it's like, it's at some point you can't really question it. It's like, okay, they're telling me a lot of things that I can't deny right now. So, but yeah, there was resistance for me. And I think, like she said, sometimes it would just be like, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Like, I don't want to ask this question, because then it's also a level of responsibility that whatever that answer is. And I think for me, I also had to learn Because even that thing when you talk about judgment,
Mm-hmm.
like you go from the church to kind of feeling like, oh, am I going to be judged by God? Am I going to go to hell if I, whatever? And then you go into Ifa and maybe you, some of that you still might have because you get these readings and it's like, okay, you're an E-Ray or no, you're an EB. And I had to even really shift my perspective with that because as a kid, that felt pressure. Like, dang, I'm in EB. Like,
Right.
like, you know, whatever this experience is. But
Right. Like, I don't even want to leave the house because I know it's gonna be trash. You know?
Don't let it tell you that you might have car troubles this year.
Right.
That's crazy. You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about that though is that I tell a lot of people who've never been to prison that prison is filled with people that always say, if I just would have followed my first mind. And when we are young, our parents are our first mind. But that's difficult. That's difficult to accept when you're a teenager and you want to do the things that you want to do. And like Fafore said, as adults, there's still some things that you just want to do, you just want to experience. And I'm like, you just don't ask the question. We're not gonna even ask if we're not gonna even go down that road. We just gonna we just gonna do what we want to do and see how things play out. So yeah, I get that.
So I have a question for you all. When you do kind of have that feeling of like, oh, like I want to do this. I already planned this trip. I already did this. Like, you know, I want to go bad. I want to do this. Do you still follow through and maybe like divine, or do you kind of just go with it, or have you kind of done both and just kind of see the results? I don't know.
Oh, Shaun?
If it's something that I really want to do and I feel like I know what Ifa is gonna say, and if what Ifa is gonna say is kind of contrary to what I want to do, then I may not even go down that road. But I try to stay disciplined enough to divine about everything, especially if it's major. If it's major, I try to because my wife, she was concerned about, I'll give you an example. My wife, she's concerned about Isaiah going to school because of all of the school shootings and those types of things. And for me, it's like I don't want us, especially him, to live our lives based on fear, because I've taught him it's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to be afraid and have that paralyze you and stop you from doing the things that you know you need to do or want to do. So for things like that, yes, I'll consult Ifa, even though I'm against him not going to school. I want him to go to school, even though I'm against that. But for something like that, just because it's serious, I'll still divine on it. But stuff where you just want to just get into something, then maybe not.
That's me all day. Like, so, and what I had to learn in that too, like I said, because I've had to bump my head sometimes, is that the experience is still going to play out. So it's like, if I get the reading and it tells me, because sometimes you already, like your first mind, like, like, what, sometimes what it's going to say, you know what I'm saying? But you might make your decision and that is what it is, but the experience is still going to play out. And I think through living that, at times when I was younger, at times as a young adult, and even now, like I'm 28 years old. So it's like transitioning from that, young adult to like getting even older in my adulthood, it's like, you kind of start to see that like, okay, well, you get this reading, you might feel how you feel, but the experience still plays out. And then it kind of empowers you in a sense too, because it's like, you have a choice. Like you can either ride this wave and if it goes down that path, you deal with what comes with it, or you can take the wisdom and maybe avoid all of that wahala,
Right. So you must got a lot of fives in your chart.
I don't know if I have a lot of fives, but I know being a child of Shango.
Kawo.
And we have a lot of Shango in our house.
Yeah.
I'm Oya Shango, so yeah, it definitely kind of comes with.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you with it. For me, if it's something that I want to do, I'm not divining. I'm just, I pray every morning and all that, and I'm a shift the energy as I'm in it. I travel a lot, so I divine for the energy of every trip. And if I'm in Osobo, I'm gonna say, hey, what prayers or offerings I need to shift that Osobo into Iray, and I'm gonna make that, and I'm gonna go. And my trips be wild. I be in places that I ain't supposed to be in. I be in the hood, in different countries. I was with my niece in Cuba, and we at nighttime followed this dude through a stranger through back alleys. We went into like a trap house. And she was like, "What is you doing?" I said, "Man, I divine on this trip. I'm in
Yeah.
Iray. I made my offerings and whatever. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I'm straight. Like we good,
Right.
and it always be good, right?" So, and I mean, I don't do anything that my intuition said. This ain't it. So, even though other people may be like, "Yo, that's wild. Like you really
Right.
did that." So, but nah, yeah, if it's something I really want, and it's not like Oshayun said, like something that I would consider major, all major things, even like move into a different place or investments that I might get into, whatever, all that type of stuff, I'm a divine on. But something I'm like, oh, I really want to do, and Ifa might hate, but I feel like if I get in it and it's something I could move around and still be good,
True.
I'm gonna go ahead and just go for what I know.
That's true. Sometimes you can go ahead and navigate with it and shift it. That's very true. But
Exactly.
when it comes to big decisions for us, we definitely do. Like especially with the moving and all those things. And like you said with your children, like that's important.
Right.
But yeah, and then I think also like there was also a point to against that. There was also a point where I started becoming like, well, maybe I should divine about this. Maybe I should divine about like everything,
Right.
And I also had to realize in that, like, whoa, like some things you also need to sit back and like trust your intuition.
Yeah,
like,
and listen and learn to cultivate that relationship with your intuition. I think that's also helped me starting at such a young age is to really like better understand my inner voice and listen to it. And so I think that's Ifa has also helped with that as well. Because I think that's important to really be able to just listen to that inner voice within as opposed to always relying on something outside of you,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like the Odu of Torah Meji, amongst other things, always speaks about self-realization, right? Getting to know and understand who you are so you can attract the things, the people, the opportunities that are in line with your purpose, right? How do you think that divination, having your natal chart and numerology and all of that, how do you think that having that type of information as preteens or early teens helped you like where you are now?
I feel like it was a lot as a preteen just to kind of digest. And when you're that young and you get all that information, it's like, oh, I don't see it. Like you're kind of just
Right.
in one lane. You're just like, I don't see it. There's some stuff that you're like, okay, yeah, I get this. But on the flip side, it's like a lot of information. Like, I just don't understand. I don't understand this. I don't understand that. So I think one thing that kind of helped me maybe better align myself with the information too is my parents just when I was around when we first got initiated, they started to just tell us to ask ourselves like, what do you think your purpose is? Like, why do you think you're here? Like, what do you feel that you're meant to do? And I think as I kind of just meditated on those questions, it helped me gain more answers or maybe have a better understanding of what comes up within those my readings and just what comes up with just better understand who I am.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like you said, especially when you're presented with information that's like about the scope of your life, right? You're like, okay, some of this aligns, but like, yeah, it can be hard to conceptualize all of that at that age. But it's such a blessing, like looking back, because there was information that I was told years ago and it did not maybe click till, like I said, years later. But
Right.
still was like, like that light bulb goes off later on. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it's and then just that kind of like navigating and realize, like you said, that self-awareness, it kind of brings you back to realizing like everything you really need is really within you. Like,
Ashe.
you know, that is like probably one of the best things that has come out of like the transition into getting our hand of Ifa. Because you know, even with these spiritual tools, like we have our spiritual tools, but you're not always going to be at home to go to Eshu or like to go to your Ogun pot. Like sometimes you need to call on your no your tools, use your tools when you know out and about in the moment. Like you know to talk to your ancestors while you're riding in the car. I'm talking to my grand, you know. So
Right.
I think that has been like one of the greatest blessings, and just it's like, yeah, the self-awareness that it's like inevitable. You just learn
it definitely
so
makes
much
you
about yourself.
see
Yeah,
it makes you see yourself, like the good, the bad,
yes,
like everything about you. It really shows you who you are.
and it's like never ending, because you know, from a teenager to now, like as you know, you go into adulthood, it's like you said, you see all of it, and sometimes it can be ugly, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or it can be scary, and but I just feel like it's always an ongoing, at least for me, it's always an ongoing journey of like, okay, accepting like, yeah, these are the parts of me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And but I have a whole lifetime to, like, you know, it's like
Right.
I have a whole lifetime, so it's like, yeah.
Yeah. You know, y'all make me feel a lot better about my son. You know,
Is he?
he's gonna be he just turned 16
Okay.
this month. Yeah, he just turned 16. So, you know, I know he wants to do the things that he want to do, and he could be doing a lot worse things. You know, when I was 16, yeah, it was no way, you know, it was no way possible for me to be even near Ifa or anything else that had to do with spirituality, so, or religion. So yeah, I'm thankful for that. But I'm hoping that he is watching and learning and picking up certain things, because he said the same thing that you all said, that it's just certain things that he can't conceptually understand. He just can't understand it yet. And I know how horrible teachers can be if they know something and they just know it because they know it and can't understand why you can't understand it. Then yeah, so I'm trying not to be that person and just let him, you know, figure it out on his own.
Have to, because Ifa is such a personal experience. Even the way people practice Ifa is different. Like, you know, there's different
Right.
within our spiritual system, and there's people are more dogmatic than other people. People, you know, people treat this spiritual system different depending on where you're from and how you were raised.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to. I think what my mother said was really good, because yeah, like they told us, oh, you're getting your hand, but they never really forced us to do anything. It was always like, you know, okay, maybe there might be some rituals here and there. Like, you know, sometimes when things are called in to do, you need to do them. And so it's like, okay, I need you to do this prayer for 3 days, or I need you, you know what I'm saying? But
Right.
they were never like, they never really were forceful about it. But at some point, like you start to see it, because again, like once you get certain readings and stuff, it's like you just can't deny it. It's like you
Right.
to a certain age where it's like you want that type of growth. I know for me that happened. Like when I went to college, it got to a point where, you know, I've always had like a lot of friends, right? But I had friends, but I felt lonely, you know? And so I remember going to SU, like opened the way for me to just like, I felt so misunderstood. Like I need people who I can talk to, people who, you know, even if they're not in Ifa, like they're just more open-minded, you know, or like
Right.
have a more like spiritual mindset, you know. And so yeah, I had to learn how to attract those things. And you start to realize like, okay, it's better if I work with this as opposed to resist it, you know?
Right. Right.
But you have to
Absolutely.
self a lot of times. At least I did that.
Right.
So you talked about, or both of you talked about getting your hand of E5, you know, a couple of times. So what age were you when you did that? And like what was going through your mind at the time that you're going through this ceremony? Because I was 38 when I did mine, and I was like, well, back up before mine, I went to Oshayum's hand of Eva because he is a month before me.
Okay.
And I remember being in that ceremony like, what the hell is this? And I was grown.
So we did back when the juju shop.
Yes, it was like we were at the juju shop and it was
a small room, kind of. But it was a lot. I just remember a lot of people being in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember it just being an amazing night.
It was.
Like everybody was, our ancestors really showed up. First of all, I was 12.
Yeah, and I think I was like 14.
Yeah, and we got it together.
14 or 15. Yeah, we both, and I think I will say throughout our journey, getting our hand of Ifa, going into Sode, like we've always done it together. So I think there's always been a more of a comfort in that too, because it's always been called for us to do these things together.
Yeah.
And okay, we didn't really know what this was all about, but we sit on this mat together, and it's like almost sometimes we can like read each other's minds. Like, you know, like, okay, well, we don't know what's going on, but our parents, we trust them, like, you know.
Right.
So it was a lot, but it was almost like a party, like the way the energy, like the energy that like even though at the time we didn't really understand, oh, these are your ancestors, and you know, but looking back, they were in there. They were like, you know, they were dropping a lot of wisdom on us. So fully understand it, but still a level of like comfort of like, this feels safe, you know?
It was a really fun experience to me, and it was interesting receiving kind of the information that we did get, even though it was a lot. But it was interesting just seeing the different priests go around and tell us messages that they thought that was cool. And I just remember going home and feeling high, like just feeling like, I don't know even how to describe it. It was literally just like a 12-year-old high, like,
right.
Yeah, it's very euphoric. Oh my gosh! Wow, is this what this is like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, more work came with it, but you know,
a lot.
Absolutely. So when y'all got those implements home, was it something like that y'all kind of immediately gravitated towards? You know, going to your implements. Did it start off that way and then kind of 15, 16, 17 slow down? You're like, I ain't got time for all that. Like how? You know, walk us through that experience.
You know, it wasn't necessarily immediate for us. And I think even with just like going to our ancestors too, like, or even like Eshu, it's like, okay, I'm talking to Stone right now. Like,
right.
I know that's how
like not fully connecting truly like who Eshu is with this pot, you know? Right. So it wasn't an immediate connection. I think that came more so as I grew older and really began to, I guess, see more of a value in it and how I could really be using it, how it could help me navigate through stuff. You know,
right.
Fully understand it, you know? So I didn't know how to. It was kind of uncomfortable. It was weird. Even just the thought of like going to my ancestors and stuff, it was just kind of awkward. I didn't feel the connection that I feel now. You know, when you really feel it and when you really know that it's there and it's real, like, what's up, y'all? Like, I need y'all help. Like, you know, it's real cool.
I need it. I need it quick.
But, you know, when it's not like that, it's kind of like, okay, hi, like, are you here?
Right.
That's true.
Thank you for
true.
everything you do.
We'll see how this
I'm going to
works.
light this candle. Okay.
Right.
So it was definitely, it wasn't immediate after we got initiated. It probably took a couple years.
It did. And she was probably collecting dust for a little while. Like, because like you said, it's like you go from, like we said, we had hopped around even with, you know, seeing our parents in the mosque and in the church, you know, of course you still prayed, but it was never like, oh, you have these spiritual tools. So that was, that again, that took a little bit of time for me too, just to really understand. It's like, even when they're telling you go put honey, I remember one time, I think we had ran out of honey or something, and I had went to SU. I was in high school. I think I was like maybe a senior or a junior or something, and I went to SU, and I was talking to my dad later. I was like, "Yeah, I didn't have any honey, so I just put some agave on my my SU." I remember he was like, "What?
Right.
Why would you do that?"
It's sweet.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because even when I say like, I learned so much even through my parents, like how Ifa is like very personal, like even how people use their tools. Like my dad kind of had a fit about that. He was like, why would you do that? Like, you know, but my mom was like, well, like what you said, she said, well, it was sweet. Like in that moment, it was genuine, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. And, you know, it's like what I had at the time. So,
Right.
you know,
You know, you give SU candy, all that. I mean, he likes sweet. So yeah, that
exactly. So, but it was just funny because even how my parents sometimes see their practices and the way they pray is even different, you know, because
right.
and there's been certain situations where like, yeah, my dad, no, don't do it like that. And my mom is like, well, did it work? Or like, was it genuine? You know, so
Right.
even that was like a part of my learning experience. So, you know, I put some agave on my shoe and I did what I had to do. You know?
Ashe. And just for the family out there who, I mean, may not know, we know their parents personally. When both of us came to E5, their mother was one of the first people to welcome us in, and she is a staple, you know, at the compound. We see her all the time. And their dad is we got a group chat, whereas myself, O'Shea, and their dad. So again, he's a part of our E-Lane. We talk to both of them all the time. So we know them very well.
Right. Yeah.
So grateful for them because I learned so much, and I have to also sometimes realize how blessed I am to like have them. Like we live right up the street, so even with them, it's like I'm always around them, and it's like, you know, there's E5, but also just watching them and observing them. Like I will sometimes just like watch my mom when she prays or like listen to the way she prays. And I will ask her, like, sometimes if I'm going through something or if I need to call in something, like I might not always even know the words. You know what, you know, when they say like God knows your heart, like, you know,
right.
how you feel. Like I don't always even know what is the language to use. And I can even go to her or watch her and she will help me navigate that. So it's like, even with your son, there will come a point where it's like he will be able to see like, oh, like you are also an amazing resource that I can use. You know what I mean? So it's I mean, it is, I have so much gratitude, even though they're still our parents, you know. So it's like we still bump, you know, they're our parents. Our relationship different with them because they're our parents. So there's times like, you know, we still might bump heads with our parents. But at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful in the way that I can observe them and just learn so much through watching how they practice, you know.
You mentioned Soda and the two of you going through Soda together. So what made you all venture into Soda, and what other works came along with that? Like, was that something that you all took to immediately, doing it, you know, later in life?
Well, so we got our Soda in January 2021.
It was called for us.
It was called for us, and it was long overdue, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just with, especially like both of our parents being priests.
I think the only reason we kind of waited a little bit longer was just with COVID and everything. It was some stuff going on, but yeah, it was called for us. It was definitely necessary. I think we had a little bit more game going into Soda by that time. It was like, okay, we don't have to feel weird or spooked out about this.
It's so funny because when we had our Soda ceremony, we walked in there, and I don't know, you know, once you go in that Orisha house, we were just during the whole ceremony, just in general, we were very emotional.
Yeah.
So I think it was a huge release for us.
Yeah.
Letting go of what no longer is needed.
I say.
Truly level up as we truly become who we are meant to be. We need to release what no longer serves us, even how we viewed ourselves. You know, it's time to show up show up in the light of who we are meant to be, just walking that path. And to just do it confidently and release the fears. So I think it was just a lot of release going on, and just telling us it's time to level up.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was a good ceremony. It definitely came with more responsibility.
That's what I was going to say. I would say for me, like when we got into Sode, yeah, it was just time. It felt right. And but the things that come after, right? It's like even when you first get your hand, it's like that self-awareness. The experiences that you're going through. I'm sure when you guys became priests, you know what I'm saying? You know how that goes. Like there's certain things that like, whoa, this is so exciting, but dang, I'm getting my butt whooped in certain areas, or like, certain, or just certain things might come up that you have to navigate through. And it's also like that for me with Sode. Like I remember we got Sode in January. I think in March, I like totaled my car. Like, I had a crazy experience even with that. And it's like, I had to go through that experience, and like, it came with a lot. It sat me down for a while. You know what I mean? It sat me, and I had to sit with myself and sit with some things. And, and it's like frustrating in that moment, but it's like, okay, well, this is kind of the path that you're on. Like, this is what you have to get the lessons that come with it. So, looking back again, it's just a part of the experience, but, I'm grateful for it, because even in Sode, you just learn a lot more, and you're what you can be involved with. You can be involved with more.
We can support the ears and everything through just people getting their hand in Ifa. So I enjoy that from a different lens, being able to support about with the ceremonies. It's nice.
Yeah. I remember asking Baba before we got initiated as priests, like, hey, what am I signing up for? Like, what I got to be responsible for? Like, what? What? And they was like, you'll find out when you become a priest. I'm like, well, that might be too late. Like,
right.
That's how our mom kind of was too. Like, she didn't really tell us.
Yeah, our mom. It's so funny. Like when she says that, she just kind of let us figure it out in certain ways. She really has. Like, she's always a resource. Like, she always is giving us gems, and she's always helping us. But it's a lot of ways that she's like, kind of like you said, like, oh, you'll see. You don't have to stress it too much, because so much of this practice is through experience. Even, and that's where sometimes it's even has been difficult for me at times, where I'm like, I don't want to say difficult, but it's been like, even when people ask you about Ifa and stuff, you're like, okay, you can explain it, but like, it's kind of through experience that you learn all of these things, and you learn so much about yourself. So
yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Y'all growing up in Ifa, y'all talked about some things that y'all just didn't understand. Well, talk to us about some of the things that you saw your parents doing that you just didn't understand. You didn't understand why they were, like you said, oh, I'm praying to this stone right now. I'm talking to this rock right now. So what were some of the things that you saw your parents do that you didn't understand then, and now you better understand?
I think even like in the gatherings, that we would have, everything, like maybe sometimes the music they would play, the dances, like all of it, like, the orishas, not really understanding, over time, like we began to understand, okay, this is what the orishas are, and you can call on this energy, that sort of thing. But all of those things, definitely like Eshu, definitely, the Ogun pot, like those things were all unfamiliar with us in the beginning. I'm trying to think, anything else?
That's pretty much the main things.
Yeah. But again, it was always like, even though there was times where I felt maybe like I don't get this yet, or what's going on, it was never like a scared feeling, or like I mean, we trust our parents. Like, I know that they're gonna put us in any situation that they don't believe is not in our best interest, or so it was always a level of trust. But I always kind of just felt like, I mean, I think at a young age, me personally, I kind of question, like, is this for me? Is this path for me? Will I stay on this path, like, when I leave the house, when I get older? Because again, And I didn't feel bad about questioning it because I saw my parents question. I saw them go from the mosque to Christianity to Ifa. So I'm like, is this a phase or is this like, so
it's not a phase.
it ain't.
Right. And that's one of the most beautiful things for me personally that I've heard you guys say over and over and over again. Because I grew up around people who practice religion, and it was this is what you're doing.
Mhm.
And you don't see people question religion, and it's frowned upon to question the religion. But you saw parents who went around and said, "Hey, we got questions.
Yep.
We trying to figure it out. So let's dabble in this, let's dabble in that. Okay, let's go back. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? Dabble in that again. Okay, no, that really ain't for us. And then jump way out the roof, off the roof, and then go to African spirituality and practice that and be like, okay, yeah, this is cool. And then not be so dogmatic
Yeah.
and say, this is what y'all doing. You know, I'm gonna give y'all the same freedom that we enjoy so you can figure it out on your own. So I think that is super dope.
Yes.
Yeah, we're very blessed that they have just been so open with us.
Yes.
We've seen, our parents have been together, like married so long, and we've just seen them grow up. Like,
yeah,
in a,
seriously.
like we've grown up with each other, and so it's just cool to have seen where we all started to like where they are now. Like, I don't know, it's really beautiful. I'm proud of both of them.
I'm so proud of them.
Yeah.
Like seriously, and like you said, it even though at that time, like I said, it came with some frustration for me because it was like, dang, it felt like my peers, right? Like my friends, some of my best friends, like my best friend to this day, some of my best friends are from high school. And one of my best friends, her father was a pastor or is. So even with him, I was going to church with her too.
Right.
And sometimes I might be a little jealous, like y'all have it figured. This is your religion. You don't really have to question it. It just seemingly makes sense, right? Even though a lot of people who are in that path maybe not spiritually connected to it. But in my mind as a kid, I'm like, okay,
right.
Look, y'all just came into this. You don't have to question it. But as an adult, I became so grateful because of what you said. I always felt that I could have the freedom to figure out my own spiritual self and my own connection. I was able to release that judgment of like, it has to look a certain way. And you like I said, you even see people practice Ifa and how they use their spiritual tools different. So that is one of the best things that I've learned from being able to observe my parents from a young age. Is like, oh, okay. It doesn't, there's no
right or wrong.
There's no one blueprint for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. And that's one of the most amazing things, but that's something that I hope to instill into my children. And that's a curiosity. Even if you don't do what I do, just question everything. If you question everything, you'll be fine. So I want you to be curious. I want them to see what y'all saw in your parents. You saw them questioning and moving around and dabbling in this and getting into that. So, my son has seen me moving around, going from the Masonic Lodge to messing around with the Rosicrucians and now getting into Ifa. So he's seen me question myself, question my own beliefs and values and all of those things. So I hope that instills in him the way that instilled in y'all just from watching your parents.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And especially now, I'm so grateful because like I had a son. So for me, it's like, it just gives me chills to think about it because it's like you think about every generation, right? Like my parents came into it as you all did as adults, they had to navigate their journey and then they put us on game, right? And we had to navigate our journey, but at a younger age, right? Like, okay, I still went through that confusion and, even now, like I said, as an adult, I still am navigating, but now my son, he will be born into like knowing like, you know, your ancestors are with you. You
I
can
say.
call on them. Like you can always use these tools. You will always be divinely protected. Like it always makes me almost want to cry, like thinking about it, because it's like, it just, when we talk about the way Ifa kind of like, it makes you self-aware, and it also just brings so much healing for you personally and for your lineage. So
I
it just
say.
so incredibly grateful, because even though it's like I still don't have it all figured out, right? But just knowing that my son and my kids, and when she has kids, like they're gonna be onto it even faster. And it's crazy because when my great grandmother passed in 2018, you know, I remember like we got some of her things, right? And I remember looking through a journal, and it was a journal that my grandfather had. It was my dad's dad. And I remember seeing like his handwriting and seeing him writing about my dad, and he was writing his name down, and he was writing his my dad's a Cancer, so he was writing down his sign, and he was writing down his daughter's name and her sign, and like the attributes of those things. And it's just so crazy to me, because I'm thinking like, even when you guys ask us about our journey into Ifa, I'm like, oh, well, it starts with our parents, but it starts even before then. Because this was like, you know, and whatever, I'm gonna tell my dad's age, but he was born in 1969. So, you know, now it's like really trendy and cool to be like, oh, astrology, and this is my chart, and this is my sign, you know.
Right.
But back then, I imagine it wasn't so much. It was probably like maybe even taboo, because again, growing up in Church of God in Christ, like astrology, like you know. So to me, that even shows like there was something in him that was even curious, or you know, spiritually searching. And you know, he passed in like his he transitioned in like his mid-20s, I believe. So it even makes me think that's so young to be like thinking about those things and kind of being curious during that time. So even if he was to live longer, like, you know, it was like the seed was even planted even before, you know, before my parents even came into it. So it's like it all kind of worked out the way it was supposed to work out, you know.
Wow. You know, Fafore and myself, we talk about us coming into E5, you know, close to being 40 years old. But we also talk about that there could never have been another time that we could have come into E5. What about you all? Do you think that if you would have waited, like if your parents never taught you about E5 and you are trying to come into E5 now in your late 20s, mid to late 20s, do you think that now would be a good time for you to find E5 or for E5 to find you? Or did E5 need to find you the way that E5 found you?
It definitely needed. It found me the way it needed to find me. I was 12. I was so young. But I think it just kind of allowed me to just get ahead of seeing myself on a deeper level, and just asking those deeper questions and trying to understand who I am. I think it also helped me to begin to fully like just learn how to accept myself more at a younger age, and learn how to use my voice more, and just be grounded. I don't know, just learn how to, I don't know, just be more confident and just move the way I need to move. So I think it helped me in those ways.
Yeah. That self-acceptance, because again, like you go on this journey, and sometimes like it was lonely for me at times, or it was like just constantly, like I grew up feeling so misunderstood, you know what I mean? And I had already felt misunderstood before we got into Ifa, because like I said, we saw y'all go from the mosque, and that's a totally different, you know, you go into the mosque one way and they have certain rules and how you show up, and then you go into church. So it's like, you know, yeah, that what an experience.
At the right time. No, we was confused, didn't know what was going on.
It came at the right time.
You know.
Because it had to sizzle in. You know that I had to marinate.
Right.
A little bit. So I imagine if I was just getting into it now, I mean, I would still be grateful because even now, if you think about it, like even now is a young age for so many people.
Right.
But there's a lot, like I said, growing up, it was more difficult because even in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, so many things have become more acceptable. Whether it's spirituality or just a whole bunch of other things as far as people being individual. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nowadays, it's a little bit easier. I mean, I don't know if I would say easier, but it's a little bit more socially acceptable. But back then it's like it wasn't the same. So ultimately I am grateful. And I don't think it could have found us in a different way. I don't think it would have, I just think it happened how it was supposed to happen. And I'm grateful.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's what it said at my Ishe 5. Like I wasn't supposed to come into E5 until, later in life. Because at 12,
Yeah.
14, 25, nah, that issue would still be collecting dust.
Yeah. Like, and like I said, even now I still have experiences like I bump my head and I'm like, okay. But again, the experience is gonna play out.
Right.
And that's just I have learned throughout the pattern of like experiencing this, like it's gonna play out. So at some point you have to also look at yourself and be like, okay, well, what decision am I going to make? And again, it's like empowering because it's like, well, I can make the decision. And if I bump my head, I have to accept what comes with that too.
Right.
Yeah. I know definitely that was some experiences that I had to have before coming to Ifa. There was I had to go through Christianity and those different things. I had to learn about those different things. I had to have the experiences that I did leaving my family or losing my freedom at such an early age. I had to have those experiences to be able to be here with y'all now. That's a definite. I could not have come to Ifa at 12 or 14 and things like that, especially not growing up where I grew up at. It just wasn't going to happen. I had to, survive. So spirituality wasn't something that was going to facilitate that at the time.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it definitely wasn't.
Don't do for me right now. That's
Yeah, right. Nothing. So, it's just like you and your new son. So I have a 1-year-old daughter that's gonna know nothing but E5. She's gonna grow up seeing me on the mat, seeing her mother doing certain things. So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. So yeah.
I just need my son to stay out of my Erosu powder. Yeah. And then me and him would be cool.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful now because it's like we're able to see the children like coming up in Ifa. It's so amazing because like within our Elay, like again, when we were first coming to it with our parents, it's like that's another reason why it was kind of hard for us to just lean right into it because we didn't see a lot of children like
Right.
tagging along with our parents. So to me, it felt like this is something old people do. Like this is what y'all.
Right.
That's like for me, like because I didn't see myself yet. I didn't see it, but now it's like I'm grateful because even when we're in the Elay, it's like a lot of young people.
Yeah, it's more people our age coming in, so it's cool. It's a different experience than when we were really young because we got it, and then it was just kind of like, okay, like now what? Like, of course, we weren't really expressing, like, we couldn't talk to our friends,
right?
And so we was just kind of like discovering it with each other and our family.
Yeah,
So
I'm just at each other
for real.
And that's probably was the plan of, you guys being so close in age because, again, that was part of the plan. It was going to just be you two. And if there was like a big age gap, it might not have been the same, So it was cool that y'all came together. But that made me think of something, though, about like relationships in E5 and forming and managing relationships in E5. Talk to us a little bit about that and what was that experience like?
That's a great question. For me, because And it's also like thinking about it, like my both of us, we have the same life path number.
What's that?
So it's 11, and
It's
then
11
too.
11
So
too.
it goes down to 2, and that deals so much with relationships.
Yep.
Like so much of my experiences, like my lessons come through relationships. You know, so much of my messages come through relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's romantic relationship, whether it's family, all of those things, all type of encounters. But for me, that has been one of the like things that has been interesting navigating, right? Because I'm such a like, I love people. Like that is what fills me, like people, connecting with people, talking to people, like, you know, being friendly, like that sort of thing. And so for me, like as I navigated through Ifa, I never felt like, okay, in order to be a friend with somebody or to be in a relationship, whatever, like they have to also have their hand in Ifa or be in this. Because again, like I go back to how we were raised, I've learned early, there's no one right pathway, right? But the more you navigate this, it also sometimes will make it difficult because it's like you want to open up to people, you want to be vulnerable with people, but sometimes you also realize like everybody doesn't have the same awareness, or like you might not be able to use the same language with everybody, like when you're talking about certain experiences. So that it still is something that I have to navigate, you know, because sometimes it's like you have, like I have friends that, like I said, I have some of my closest best friends are like from one of my best friends is from the second grade.
Right.
But I'm so grateful because it's again like she grew up in the church and she actually has a like personal relationship with God and how she sees her religion. So sometimes we can have conversations. You know, she knows I'm not a Christian. She you know, I don't tell her like I do ancestral reverence, that sort of thing, but I know she doesn't really know what Ifa is like to the full extent, you know, but we can still have conversations and maybe talk about how we relate to God or how we pray, or you know what I'm saying? Like you just might have to use different language, or sometimes I've had to meet people where they're at. I've had to sometimes meet people where they're at. And that has been an interesting thing to navigate. But also I feel like as I prayed to have more people come to me who can speak my language, that has happened too. So it's like it's a balance. You know, I have some people, I got to meet you and you know where you at, and then it's like you start to also build those relationships where it's like, oh, you get this. Like even if you're not in Ifa, you still practice ancestral reverence, or you still know about the Orishas and stuff like that. So.
So what about because I think about that type of thing too. Now that I have a new daughter, is I don't know if I could be with a woman, at least not at the age that I'm at right now, be with a woman that wouldn't be fully on board with raising my daughter in the way that I see her being raised.
Okay.
As far as, you know, raising her up and to know her ancestors, to get to know herself, to listen to her intuition and those type of things. And then you have someone else coming and saying that, you know, they may see that as witchcraft or as devil worship or, you know, things like that. So yeah, I definitely couldn't, at least not at the age I'm at right now. I definitely couldn't see that happening. But it's good if you can find someone that, even though they don't practice Ifa, that they're willing to allow you to let our children see both sides, or see, you know, the multifaceted religious and spiritual systems that are out there.
Right.
Exactly. No, for sure. You got to be open-minded. You got to be acceptful of it, because I've had that too. I've had some people try to tell me, "Oh, what you doing?" Like that's
Literally, like I made
Right.
like I'm talking about a crystal or made a crystal joke and gotten blocked.
Wow.
Interesting, like navigating.
Yeah.
Because some people are open-minded and a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
So yeah, still navigating that.
Right. And it's funny you say something about the language that you may have to use. I find myself trying to use universal language, like language that can traverse all of these different things: Christianity, Islam, Ifa, all of these different things. So yeah, I understand it about using the language or changing the language that you use depending on the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, because it's so interesting. Like I've even realized, like, like within our community, like Black people sometimes like they'll be more accepting of like, you know, other indigenous cultures, like, you know, Asian people who maybe practice Buddhism or something like that. You can talk about their spirituality, or you can
Mm-hmm.
form, it's like the same thing, right? But you can say something like, oh, I meditated, or maybe you talk about reincarnation from a Hindu perspective, and they're like, oh, okay. But when you try to talk about it in an African sense, they're like, whoa, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very interesting, like, you know, it's like, but this is the people we come from, you know.
Right.
But
Right.
again, it's like you can relay the same message sometimes, just knowing how to use the right language and like meet people where they're at. And that's
Mm-hmm.
always what I ask, to like be able to meet people where they're at. And I do that. And when it shows up that somebody's not right for me, or like, you know, it's like I that shows up and I try to listen. Sometimes I've messed up with that too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
Or you didn't mess up. You just had the experience.
yeah, there
You
we
know,
go.
you needed that friction, right? So you could see yourself. So
Yeah.
that's all that was.
Absolutely. So you can see yourself, and that's how it plays out. So
Ashe. Well, we greatly appreciate y'all coming on
So
and
much.
hanging with us. You know, we've done 30 some odd episodes, and the overwhelming majority of people always talk when they going over their journey. It's usually Christianity. And then if it's not that, then you have Islam. But we don't have too many people. I think maybe one other person who could actually speak from Ifa from a younger age as a part of their journey. So we just thought it was important for people to see the other side, right? Because information, having people exposed to different things is how we change people, right? That's how you grow and evolve. So thank you so much for sitting with us, for sharing your experiences, sharing your knowledge with you know our listeners. So maybe when they're out there, they hear somebody saying they practice E5, you know, they won't look at them, you know, a certain way.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. I hope to see like more young people coming into it, and I think with the direction that we're moving in, it's gonna happen. It's already happening, so
happening.
it makes me happy.
Absolutely.
Like we talked about, like you know, it takes time, but even like people are having children, and you putting your children, and you know, so the tools will be passed down. So it's just a beautiful thing to see, and it makes me very grateful. So yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate y'all.
Experience.
Absolutely. Hey, family, make sure y'all hit the like button wherever it is. Smash the like button.
Like
Uh, yeah, subscribe, share it.
all the
You
comments.
know,
Up.
yeah. Say hi, speak to us. Say, hey, how y'all doing? You know, let's start a conversation. You know, and again, like, keep coming. We're gonna keep trying to provide y'all content that just helps you grow and evolve, and wherever you are in your spiritual walk. You know, we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Human experience. We
You
sure are.
know, and we came here to have an experience. So have it, whether it's good, bad, or however you want to judge it.
Yeah.
Have the experience. And I want y'all to remember, always live out loud and on purpose. Please come back and check us out next week. We love y'all. Peace.
Peace.